Well, if you see, I was just, before I was coming, I was just doing some reading, and the World Press Freedom says that India has ranked itself from 136 to 133. So that in itself, it also says that the one Freedom House International Watch says that, or WHO says that many journalists have been shot dead. 12 journalists were shot dead in 2017. This is a record worse than Syria, Iraq, and Afghanistan. So yes, there is definitely a threat.
But as a veteran politician yourself, do you see that also representing the minorities, you find yourself difficult to voice your opinion, especially in Parliament? Apart from the fact that your voice is buland.
Actually, in Parliament, one must know the procedure and the rules of Parliament. And there are many opportunities which MP gets. But unfortunately, not knowing those parliamentary practices will definitely come in your way of not able to raise your issues. But whatever limited time I have got in Parliament, I have used it. And thanks to the media who have given me a good name or bad name, I get every opportunity to raise whatever I have to say and say it in a very clear way.
But you have criticized many political leaders, many political parties. Have you spared any?
Well, criticism is part and parcel of our democracy, and criticism must be there against me as well. So, why should one spare any political party or any leader if they have to be criticized for anything which you don't agree with them or which promises which the government has failed to deliver? Because if you stop criticizing, then or if you're not allowed to criticize, then what will be left of democracy?
But is this space for constructive criticism in today's world, especially because not just as representatives of people, even when the people talk about it, is it taken in the right spirit? Is there chance?
Well, if you hear what the Prime Minister said in London on 2 days ago, he said, criticism is fine, it's like a minefield for me. But then his own government, his own ministers are filing defamation cases against various web portals. His own government wants to bring out new laws to control each and every news organization. So there is definitely a great difference between what the government of the day and the Prime Minister is saying and what his own party is practicing.
But also democracy, what is all about freedom of expression.
Yes.
What would you like to tell them at this point of time? Because they're aspiring to voice your opinion, make a change, and create a new India.
Well, this younger generation is quite bold, and as compared to what we were at their age, and they have great information tools in front of them, and I hope that they should use them and able to assert their voices, their hopes, their aspirations, and they must speak up. And if you speak up, then the country will listen to you.
I want to lighten this moment a little bit. What do you do for recreation? Do you watch movies?
No, not at all.
No. Not at all?
No.
Why not?
There was a phase in my life, but not now. Not
Music?
No, but this politics itself gives you a lot of tones and music and everything. So my life is focused on my party work, and that's it.
So you largely of your public life itself, in your private life, in terms of understanding you, what makes you the leader? How do you represent yourself?
See, this leader issue is a very subjective thing, so I don't know, I'm trying to do my best. Maybe if one leaves this world, then someone can write an obituary if it was good or bad, but leader is a very subjective term. But yes, we are busy, but at the same time we get our time to relax, and everyone does it, but it's not that we are completely into what we do. You get your time and you spend your time with your family, which I feel that is good enough.
Well, I need to now take a lot of questions, especially because there are. Can we get the mic around, please, and your hands up? Introduce yourself first, your name, and the department, and then you can ask your question. Go ahead. Can I see some hands up, please? The lights are too bright here. You have a question, right? Go ahead. You wanted to float your political party yourself. You have a question for Mr. Owaisi, I know that. Can you first pass the mic on to him and go ahead.
Good afternoon, sir. So there has been a lot of talk about freedom of speech in the current government as well as by a lot of third-party entities in our democracy. So my simple question to you would be, where do you draw a line between freedom of speech and offensive speech? Speech that distorts and disrupts the government's actions.
I think so, we need to redefine the definition of hate speech. That is, if anyone is inciting for violence, that is a hate speech. But if I give a strong speech against Mr. Modi, that cannot be called as a hate speech. Let me give an example. When Mr. Modi was campaigning in 2014 in West Bengal, he said that anyone who does not worship a goddess should leave this country. And then you have Chandrasekhar Azad Ravan in Uttar Pradesh who had just put up a board saying that this is the Chamar neighborhood. For that, National Security Act was applied on him and he is languishing in jail. So anyone who incites violence, that has to be hate speech. And secondly, we must change this whole 295, 153A, this IPC section, because it's a very subjective thing which cannot be proven in court. So that is why I said in Parliament that if anyone calls a Muslim a Pakistani, you make a law like that. Because that has to be, laws have to be objective, it cannot be subjective, which you can definitely use a law to arrest me. But when it comes to court, it is impossible to ask to prove in a criminal court that this was a hate speech.
But at the same time, sir, if I could ask you, what's your opinion on foreign funding, especially when it comes to political parties?
Well, right now, Congress and BJP are sailing in the same boat, despite the High Court order. Both of them have conveniently allowed retrospective law to be passed. Foreign funding, I don't think so. Foreign funding should be allowed in India, but this government has allowed it. And now, if foreign funding comes, it will never come to a regional party. It will always come to a national party, because anyone who's going to fund a foreign funding for a political party will definitely come to a national party, because they know they're going to form a government or not. And that is where I'll be at a very weaker wicket. And this is where this whole thing will be utilized or exploited by these two national parties.
But at a point of time in 2019, when the third front is being formed, the regional parties are looking at getting together. Don't you think that would also be helpful to them?
Well,
strength of the regional parties.
the so far data that is there in front of us, it clearly tells us that the foreign funding has been given to both the national parties. I'm yet to see whether they have really been able to give to a regional party or to a smaller party. Because anyone who's going to fund a political party, especially from abroad, they will be looking at what will they get in return. It's not a free lunch. Definitely they'll be taking into so many things in the consideration. So I think foreign funding for a political party, it should not be allowed, it should be stopped.
But if they do look at regional parties, will you change your opinion?
No, but why should you allow them to set an agenda in my country? It's fine with investing, it's fine with FDI, everything. But to allow them into a political process, and this issue of electoral bonds, God knows what's in store for us in the future.
And while you stand here in Hyderabad, the reorganization, has that made any difference? We've seen the tussle between Telangana, AP, the constant comparison that takes place. Has anything changed in the last 5 years?
You see, I was opposed to the bifurcation, let me say it on record, and I had a lot of pessimism, a lot of negative thoughts about it. But I have been proven wrong, because so far in the last 4 years, there has been definitely a sea change in Hyderabad. There has been a development taking place. The biggest issue was power issue. It has been solved. Water is available. So in that way, I think so this present ruling party has dispelled a lot of pessimism, a lot of people which had apprehensions.
Can we Any more questions that are coming in? Yes, there's a hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. So can we start there, please? Right in the corner. Yes, go ahead. Introduce yourself first, your name and your department.
My name is Rishabh Mishra. My branch is Electronics and Instrumentation. Sir, my question to you is, there is a sense that media is being controlled by government, and at the same time we see religion-based, especially in this government, Hindu-related violence propagating on. Don't you think?
Can you be a little louder and a little slower, please?
Okay. There is a sense that media is being controlled by government, and at the same time we see religion-based violence news propagating these days in media. Don't you think it's a big contradiction? Like, if the government would have been controlling media, they would have spread good news about government policies. But at the same time, we are seeing news related to violence and other things.
So you feel that the media, at one point, the government is
my answer to your question would be that if you want to read real news, do read the mainstream media, but concentrate more on print, scroll, wire, and then only you'll get to know what's happening with what the government is doing. Because the 9 p.m. nationalists, you should stop watching them if possible. But yes, violence has to be shown. Because there's a TRP to it. Showing a policeman firing or tear gas or lathi charge. It automatically brings in a lot of viewership, and so don't equate violence with what people should know what the government is doing, whether how accountable they are, what are the wrong things they're doing. So there's a huge difference between what you're saying and what is actually happening. But I agree, I'm of the opinion that media is being controlled. And I don't know who said it, but someone had said that media is no more a watchdog, but it's become a lapdog. I don't know who said it, but it was absolutely right, because not many things are being written or being shown, and that would be that is really sad.
But I would beg to differ on the point of TRPs, because, like you said, violence is more for TRPs. It's also the reality which needs to be shown. Only then the discerning audience will understand up to what extent and then stop it. Otherwise, you wouldn't have the social movements you have today.
Social movements and violence are two different things. So social movements, yes, they are very important. Again, it relates to freedom of speech and expression.
Exactly.
But as far as this violence, I feel I have my own opinion about it. But social movements are different. But violence, I don't know. Some things sometimes are shown there is no need of it. For example, this recent rape of this 8-year-old girl. There's no need to show her photograph. Or name being said, because that's against law. So that in itself has created a lot of.
The impact that has been made to say that there are certain people in society, there are certain sections of society who need to be pulled up, who need to know that they're not good, and they are people who are going to be questioned, and for their mistake, if not by us, by people, the courts will say that you will be held responsible for it, if not hanged.
Courts, courts.
I'm quoting controversy here, but I'll take on to the next question. Go ahead. Can you poke the mics, please?
Please speak a bit louder.
My name is Rishabh. Sir, today when there is no proper opposition at the national level, how do you feel against the ruling party, a strong opposition? How do you feel that the opposition party should counter this in the coming general election?
Honestly speaking, I have hope in you, because the opposition parties, you're absolutely right, we're not there at the scene, but if the youth of today realize that your hopes, your aspirations are definitely not being addressed by the present political party in power, then it is you must take, you must be in the driver's seat, you must become the masters of your destiny. Don't wait for the opposition parties to come together and to take up. But that is why I started this program by saying that it is the youth of this country who should change the political landscape in the next 7-8 months.
Yes, we have a question.
Hello. So, my name is Asad and I'm an economics plus computer science student. So, mine is a very generic question, and it's basically a call on everyone to deliberate on. We see a lot of talk about constitution and constitutionality, but at the end of the day, constitution is but a book, and its validity depends on the faith that the people of the country place on it. So, in that context, we again call upon the government, the present government included, to implement the constitution on people. But that actually is, in a sense, asking the government to be authoritarian, and we already live in sort of an authoritarian regime, like vaguely authoritarian regime. So, would asking the government to impose constitution be the right way to go forward? Because I might be echoing Ashish in these views, but would calling upon the people to have faith on constitution rather than having a movement be the right way to go forward from the way, like, the situation we are in?
The last part of your question, I totally agree with you. It's absolutely right. Because when you say that the government should follow constitution, that means that they should follow the separation of powers, that executive, legislature and the judiciary must be independent. Now, we have never seen in our country's history that you have 4 judges of the Supreme Court coming out and saying what they have to say. You have another judge who came out and said that the government of the day is sitting on the Supreme Court recommendations to have 2 judges being appointed. That in itself is the government not following the constitutional dharma, that the government of the day has interfered into the judiciary independence. Secondly, the parliament not working. See, again, legislature is independent. It again shows that the government is not following constitutional dharma by not allowing the parliament to function. Never in the past I have read that a no confidence motion that was given for a government was not discussed. That in itself shows that this theory of separation of powers is getting weakened, and that is very bad for the constitution. So the government, if they follow the constitution, then that is the only way you can stop a party in power from becoming like what's happening in Turkey or Russia, wherein they become more authoritarian and the constitution is set aside, and whatever the strong leader wants, that becomes a constitution. So for you and me to save this country, the constitution is the book which must be implemented in black and white.
Yes, we have a couple of more questions. Yes, go ahead.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Jayesh Srivastav. I'm from the Civil Engineering Department. So you spoke about the role of youth in the politics. So, but the stats suggest that in the last 70 years of our independence, the average age of the parliamentarians has only gone up. While we are the youngest country in the world, so we have to capitalize on our youth power. So I want to ask, why is this, this goes against the spirit of democracy, because the majority of our country is not being well represented in the parliament. So I want to ask that what is the way to involve youth, especially intelligent youth who are more drawn towards lucrative options as compared to politics? What is the way to involve these people that we always talk about, that youth should be there? How do we actually ensure that on ground?
See, the one reason, one of the important reasons I feel, if you make a list of 3-4 points why we don't see enough youth people in politics, is because of this whole, control of hegemony in our whole electoral process. And that is where the party becomes very important. So if you have to win an election, then you have to have a party which sponsors your, your election expenditure. But having said that, it is very important for all the political parties to realize that if the population of the country, 60%, is less than 35, we must ensure that you have more younger faces. But our thought process in India is that jitna bura hoga utna experience hoga usko. That has to change, because I have realized, I work with every section of people, and I realize that today's youth, they are able to understand what I'm trying to do. They tell me things which never come in my mind. say, why have you not said this? Why don't you do this? Why do you do that? So I feel that we'll have to overcome this. Oh no, if only a 60-year-old man or 70-year-old man can become a prime minister. But I'm not hinting at a 47-year-old man who's still to decide whether they have a beard or not. I'm not hinting at that. But you know, the youth have to be brought in and ensure that you win elections, from municipal elections to panchayat, to assembly, to parliament. But that is very, very important for this country, so that we can, you know, address their aspirations, and that is how we can take India forward.
And examples set by politicians, do you think there should be a maximum age limit for political icons? Because if you search on the web and you write political icons of India, the age goes on 50, 60. That doesn't mean young icons at all. Should there be a cut-off age for them?
Well, I don't agree with that, because I am, you know, in politics, it's not like a government job. It's people who decide whether they want to vote for me or not.
So age matters then?
Yeah, but age matters in terms of, see, if you address and if you're really for youth empowerment, then you must bring them forward not only by agitations or on TV talk shows, but make them fight elections, help them, let them win the elections, so that that section of our population, their needs, their hopes, aspirations can be addressed.
Surely. We have a last question that we can take. Okay, we have some more questions.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Yash Lata. I am from Chemical Engineering Department. So, talking about the free speech these days, so lots of defamation cases are there, right? Like for the Wire, 100 crores defamation case. So, how a person like weigh their fame with like 100 crores, first of all, and so is it a bit like partial? Like the Wire is like independent, so they must be having lots of less funds. So lots of funds goes to get the justice. Like if they put a case in like somewhere in Gandhinagar court, so a person from Delhi has to go there, like buy flights or lawyers fee. So better than having such kind of defamation case in our, like they can put a better story, like talking about like they have northeast stories and all those stuff. So settle the funds. We should have some kind of rule in our Supreme Court, like such senseless, not senseless maybe, like what we call it, nonsense cases not be there, so that people can stuff their funds to the particular thing they are going to do that.
Can I have a more sharper question than that of what you're asking?
So I'm asking, there should be a law or a rule, so no nonsense defamation case will be there.
So that media houses do not have to face cases against cases that could be possibly due to vendetta, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
I don't know why Supreme Court allowed criminal defamation to exist. You know, the whole criminal defamation is, you know, look at this way Supreme Court is working. So they allow criminal defamation, but they say that a FIR against a Dalit cannot be issued till only after an inquiry of 1 week. They allow criminal defamation, but they say an offence under PO Act will only be made if there are 2 witnesses to it, not it cannot be given in a particular speech. So there is a lot of huge contradictions between what we are seeing, and you're absolutely right. You know, that is why I started by saying that freedom of speech and expression has been, in a way, captured by the most powerful people. So if you write something about the son of a modern day Chanakya, then you get 100 crore defamation notice. If you write something about a TV channel, then the owner files a case against them. So yes, we are limiting freedom of speech and expression by allowing such sort of litigations. You know, we'll have to really apply our mind and see whether we really require such laws in this day and age. You know, civil defamation, that also has to be looked into, because you're absolutely right, filing 100 crore defamation for what? You know, I'm reminded of what senior lawyer Jetmalani asked one union minister, how did you calculate yourself to be that much of work?
That's one of my questions. How they calculate the 100 crore? My work is 100 crore.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So we'll have to really change some laws.
Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you. We'll take the last 2 questions, please. Go ahead.
So this is Gokul here. I'm doing my majors in civil engineering department. So we all remember 1984, 2002 and the recent Bharat Bandhs. And this was because of the violent clashes between, say, two communities. Communalism, casteism is so deeply ingrained in the minds and identities of people that it takes violent forms of its worst phase ever. Why do you think these things are happening? And what can the government do, or the people at the other end of the spectrum can come up with a solution to such problems?
84 and 2002 were not a clash, it was a genocide. Wherein one minority community was literally massacred and butchered. And the rule of law was shredded. So for that not to happen, you will have to have structural reforms to take place within the police department. And unless or until the police department is freed from the clutches of the ruling party. Because why didn't the police come to the rescue of Sikhs or Muslims in 84-2002? Because the political masses didn't allow. In fact, the subsequent inquiry report also said that they were told not to go to the next place, a white place. So in future, even I think we should add Nelly massacre of Assam into it. That was also a huge, great massacre. So the police has to be made independent. Then only, and then police must be made accountable. Because one can make a list of what? 15, 16 incidents where the police has been accountable. Take the example of Hashimabad. 42 Muslims were picked up, shot dead. The case is still going on. And those police officers were given promotions. Bhagalpur riots, now that man is heading Bihar force. So accountability of police, independence of police is very much important. And if that doesn't happen, then of course, God forbid, we might in future see all these things you just mentioned.
Well, we'll take this one last question.
Hello, sir. My name is Vignesh Sitaraman. I'm in the MSc Physics department. So, you were talking about how the police should be held responsible and how it should be accountable. But there are acts in the Constitution for that. So, how do we ensure that the word of the law, the spirit of the law rather than the word of the law is the main thing?
Now, let me give you an example on the spirit of Constitution. The Constitution says you and me have a right to life. That's a fundamental right. But what's happening in UP is the rule. It's not being governed by rule of law, but by rule by law, rule by gun. People are being killed in the name of so-called encounters, and so that in itself clearly is a violation of right to life. This is a fundamental right in our Constitution. So coming back to the question of following the Constitution is very, very important. Because if you don't follow the Constitution, then you will be getting all these issues. A riot happens and the police turns a blind eye and allows damage to take place. You have what's happening in UP is there for everyone to see. So coming back to the main issue is that we must have the law enforcement agencies, the investigating agencies should be freed from the clutches of the ruling party. That is what is required for our country, and believe me, if that doesn't happen, then the weaker sections, the less powerful people, the minorities will always be facing such scenarios like 84 or 2002.
But it all boils down to democracy and how we have to have and fall in line with the democratic setup and the freedom of expression. And it's up to you to voice yourself and your opinions. Thank you so much today, and thank you so much, sir, for joining us. Let me